Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of IDTALK4ED Live, the show for the unsung heroes of education. I'm your host, Sarfo-Mensah. And if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, I welcome you and I hope that today's episode is one that will have you coming back for more. And if you're a returning listener or a viewer of the podcast, as always, I welcome you back and I hope that today's episode is one that you find informative, enlightening, and as always, insightful. So before we get into the main event, if you are on YouTube, please hit that red subscribe button so you can get future notifications on new episodes. If you're listening from Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure you subscribe there as well. And for those who would like to help us contribute and build this platform that we love so dearly, you can do that in 4 ways. If you're on Cash App, you can use the handle $ IDTALK4ED. If you're on Venmo, we have our handle @KwameSM. And if you're on PayPal, we have our URL paypal.me/KwameSM. And then for those who are on Patreon, we have a page there. If you want to become a Patreon today, make sure you look for our Day Talk for Educators or my name, Sarfo-Mensah, and become a Patreon and get perks on behind the scenes footage and all things Identity Talk. And it's just a way to show our appreciation for all the support you've given us over the years. And then, of course, to check out future and past episodes of the podcast, you can go to our main website at identity-talk4educators.com. And then for our avid readers, I have my book, Learn to Relearn. It's been out for about 5 months, and this is the book that you need to have if you are all about affirming intersectional identities of students, of humans in general. Even if you're not a teacher, you could be someone that's at an NGO, someone that just is an advocate for children. You could be a parent. If you care about how you want your children to show up in the world unapologetically and authentically, this is a book that's going to help you do that. And you can learn more about the book at our main book website at learntorelearn.com. You could also purchase your copy at the main publisher, Stenhouse or Routledge. And if you love what you've read, for those who already have a copy, please make sure you leave a 5-star review on Goodreads, Amazon, wherever you leave your reviews. Every review counts, and it helps us to build our community even more. So thank you all for the support once again. All right, people, housekeeping is done. Now we're going to get to our main event. And I am thoroughly excited for this interview that we're about to have. We're actually going to be taking it to Canada. So we have had people on the podcast from Canada. And this brother right here, listen, as soon as I started following this brother, I'm just like, man, first off, it's not even the message. The other thing about him is every time he got something fly on, whether it's the handkerchief, the blazer, the whole getup. And I've always been one that's been for fashion. Even when I was in the classroom, always was very conscious about what I put on so that I could feel good in order to do the best job I can for my students and for my colleagues. So to have somebody that reflects what it was like for me in the classroom, I feel like it's just super cool. And he's just doing some phenomenal work up in the greater Toronto area. And oh yeah, Jamaica's in the building, of course. So, we got Caribbean brethren in the building. So without further ado, let's bring on Dr. ABC, or better known as Dr. Andrew B. Campbell, to the podcast to talk with us about his journey and why he is here with us today to share about it. So let's bring Dr. ABC on to hear about everything. Hello, sir.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening to everyone wherever you're listening from. Honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but seriously, you put it on, man. I got to give that to you.
Thank
And
you.
we'll get more about that. We'll get more into that when we get deeper in the conversation. But
Yes.
I always like to start from the beginning with my guests. So, as I mentioned, born, raised in Jamaica, eventually made your way up to Canada and doing what you're doing right now. But just tell me a little bit about your early upbringing and what ultimately got you wanting to become an educator to begin with.
Thank you. Well, I've always wanted to be a teacher. Always wanted to be a teacher. And I must say, we use the word teacher back home a lot. So being an educator, big umbrella term is, I consider to be one of the progressive terms, but I've always wanted to be a school teacher. And that term
Mm-hmm.
school teacher, it's a little bit different from just saying an educator. School teacher for me signifies a level of belonging, a level of home, like it feels like home. So I've always wanted to be a teacher. But the beautiful thing is that I've always been inspired by teachers along the way. So even if I would say I'm not so sure, there comes a moment of inspiration, and I'm sure. And even if I'm losing it, there comes a moment of inspiration because of the teachers that I have admired, the teachers that are in my life and those I've admired. So when I was in elementary school, I can easily remember my grade one teacher, Miss Michael. I will never forget Miss Michael. Miss Reed, grade three, who taught the best poetry. Miss Hamilton, grade four, that just amazing. Miss Hallin, grade five, and then that went on to high school. That went on to people like Miss Brown in high school, who taught me English literature, which I end up loving so much. My history teacher in high school, who taught me so much about religion as a social force. That was the first time I understand our African history, or my African history, was in high school in grade 10 history. But what I noticed was that all those persons, what I admire about them was their leadership, their structure. I like structure. And I get to realize what inspired me was their leadership. So from early on, I saw teachers as leaders. But more than anything else, I want to say this is that my inspiration is always constant. So even today, 2025, I'm still being inspired. I remember going to teachers college and I admire my maths teacher. I admire language teachers. I've always seen a teacher, a black teacher that I want to be like. I've always seen that. And I've seen that in elementary school, primary school, we say back home. I saw it in high school, in teachers college, at the university. I have had professors that I admire at university. My PhD program, there were always professors, even today. And I work at the University of Toronto. And I can tell you, there are professors here at the University of Toronto that I look at and I pull inspiration from. And so for me, my inspiration to be a teacher, I'm going to say it started early, 5 year old, but it has always been watered and nurtured continually. And that is actually one of my constant wish and hope, is that I am also being that teacher that someone gets inspiration from, that I want to be like Dr. ABC, because I have tons of teacher I wanted to be like. So yeah.
So, just from listening to you, it sounds like you've been blessed to have so many teachers throughout your primary, secondary schooling. But I'm also wondering if along the way you ever had any conflicts or struggles in terms of being able to show up fully as your authentic
Oh,
self.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And let me just say this, and this is maybe where we're going to get into certain conversations. When
Yes.
people ask me about, one of the things that I treasure about feedback from people, I can tell you, one of the feedback that I treasure the most is when somebody says to me, Dr. ABC, you're such an authentic person. I do unpack that, what that means. What what does authentic mean? Because I think we can perform to be authentic. I think we are
Mm.
skilled and qualified enough to perform what authentic is. So for me, I always unpack that. And so one of the things I always say to people is that what you see today is a product. What you see, what you're getting right now on this podcast is a product coming from years of being processed and navigating and learning and figuring out. You know, I grew up in Jamaica. I grew up in one of the, maybe it said in a Prime article years ago, the most homophobic place on earth, Jamaica. I grew up hearing, you know, I hear people talk about violent language today and spirit murder. And I didn't realize when I was growing up how violent the language was that I was faced with. I didn't realize how much my spirit was attacked to be murdered in so many ways. The love, the joy, the black boy joy. What you see today is a product of me learning how to navigate all of that. I don't like to big up and praise the idea of resilience a lot.
Okay.
But I can honestly say I'm a product of resilience. I'm a product of navigating those spaces. So the joy that you see here, my authentic teaching, my joy, my power that I walk in, it has been tested and proven. I have learned how to navigate, learn the lay of the land. And so school was not always the best place for me. I was that invisible student. I was a student that didn't know a sense of belonging. And sometimes I wonder why I teach so much. And I'm honored to speak so much about belonging, because I know what it is to not belong in a school of over 2,500 boys. What it feels like to not feel like I don't belong here. I don't want to be here. And so when you don't belong somewhere, you don't want to be somewhere, you learn how to navigate that. And you learn how to listen carefully. You learn how to peel away who you are so you can become what they want. And so I have been forced for survival mode to peel away and police myself and to remind myself and to speak to myself in a certain way in a mirror. I want to use this analogy. Yes. Years ago in high school, I would look myself in the mirror and remind myself that you're going to school today. You have to navigate school. You need to show up a certain way. You need to be less this, less that, less this, less that. That's how I would speak to myself for survival. And I could not be my authentic self that time. You could not show up as your whole self. So much is peeled away. Today, when I look in the mirror, it's a different version. And I tell myself, go out there, go be extra, be the most. One of my phrase I use is that I'm doing the most. And I literally am doing the most whenever you see me. And so that comes off for different reasons to different people, because they hardly see blackness, immigrant, gay blackness like myself showing up the most. And that triggers some people in a way, and that makes some people just breathe in and flourish when they see me, because they see an evidence of what it is to show up as my full authentic self. But I don't want the listeners, I don't want the viewers to walk away thinking all of this was just matter of fact, just day one. This is a product of me learning how to navigate spaces, walk into spaces, peel away myself, and show up as my whole self. So yeah, early years have impacted me in very, 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 I would say, strong ways, determining ways. And I had to figure out a lot of things from a very early age. So yeah.
That's a lot. And
yeah,
as you're talking, I'm even thinking about my own upbringing, because growing up in the United States, I had a lot of friends who came from Jamaican families. And I'm just thinking about just the culture.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking hip hop, reggae music, just all these other mediums.
Yeah.
We were using homophobic slurs because that's what we heard, right?
Yeah.
So of course, I had Jamaican friends who would use slurs, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're a bati boy," stuff like that. Yeah. And we knew what it meant, but when you're 10, 11, 12 years old, you don't realize how homophobic that is and how that harms other people.
Absolutely.
You don't
And to,
know.
and to jump in there, because what you said something that I have to jump in there. At 10, 11-year-olds, that is, you don't know the harm, and the conversation is almost like it's a joke. But I just want to remind us that there's a 10, 11-year-old somewhere, and that was me, who that was projected at, that
That's
was
right.
hurled at, that was absolutely harmful and hurtful language in another space. And so that has impacted even how I teach today, how I encourage teachers, and I must tell you, students. I'm very big on that. Encourage students how to be careful with how they speak to each other. And I specifically encourage Black students, when I get to speak to them alone, how to affirm each other. I'm very big on that. The affirmation part is major for me.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, especially now. And as you're talking about becoming the product that you are today,
Yeah.
being authentic and being a product of just the work that you've put in to get to this point, I want to talk about what it's been like in academia. Because when you come with all these different intersectional identities, being Black, being queer, being an immigrant in Canada, and having to navigate in the space of academia, where we know there's all these colonial thoughts that still linger today in a lot of these institutions. I'd love for you to actually, before we even get to that, tell me how you even got from Jamaica to Canada, and then we'll get into that part.
Okay, yeah, it's my journey. So I left Jamaica, but here's a good news. And here's a surprising thing I'm going to share with you. Canada
Yeah.
wasn't my first stop from Jamaica. So my
Okay.
first stop from Jamaica was the Bahamas.
Ooh.
I left Jamaica in 2000 to teach in the Bahamas. Bahamas was importing and hiring a lot of Jamaican and Guyanese teachers. And I was one of those persons who went into private schools into the Bahamas. So I went to the Bahamas in 2000, taught at the Baptist Authority. The church controls all those schools, right? So I taught for the Baptist Convention first, and then I taught for the Anglican Authority, Education Authority, and then I taught for the Catholic Board as well. So I've taught in all those three sets of religious schools in the Bahamas. I spent 8 years in the Bahamas, but the journey, the Bahamas is a lot of, it's the Caribbean, right? Yeah, the opportunities are better. I get to breathe a little bit more. Homophobia is in the Bahamas is nothing compared to Jamaica. So even being in that space, I started getting to understand myself more. I started learning to navigate spaces. I could go to a club and learn who I was as a gay man at that time in a different space. But also, I tell you this, my next stop was America.
Okay.
I went on I got accepted on a 4-year teaching exchange program in America in 2001. And that lasted 4 weeks.
Where in the States?
4-year contract to teach in Atlanta, Georgia, on the outskirts of the city, right on Riverdale, outside with the airport, just a short drive away from the airport.
Yeah.
And I was a 4 years contract, excited like you couldn't. I would burst with excitement. All the opportunities that came with that, and in 4 weeks, I realized how much of colonial practices was embedded in that entire contract. I say to you now, and I could feel it because I was young in my 20s at that time. And that's why I always tell people my journey is not just today when you see a certain level of glow and light in my life. I have been navigating this world and standing up for who I am long ago, before it was fashionable and before we're using the word equity and advocacy and activism. I've been an advocate for self before I know what that word meant. I want to say this, I've never used the word equity while I was in Jamaica. I've never called myself an advocate, not once in Jamaica or the Bahamas, but I know what it is to do the work. That's why I'm not so moved by language and who wants to use DEI or not. I'm not moved by language. I am moved by actions. And so as a young teacher in America, when I realized how rude and how deficit and how looked down upon, that's the best term I could find right now in my brain. So much of that exchange program was, I didn't want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I went to the office and I demanded certain things, and they were shocked at me saying what I deserve. Because I know what I bring. I've always known what I bring. But you have to remember, little black boy from Jamaica should be so, I felt that in my energy, thank you ancestors, should be so privileged.
Thankful.
Should be so thankful. I should be bowing to those people because they took me out of nothing to bring me to America to get a teaching opportunity. And I realized that I was going to be servant. I was going to serve at the tables, metaphorically speaking. And the way they spoke to me at that school, I was like, and no. And so when I offered, this is so important. So when I said to them, we'd have to fix this, they gave me an offer. And the offer was, I would have to leave Atlanta and go to North Carolina and do everything over again. Because, of course, I'm not the right fit for this space. And I made a choice after adjusting my life, resigning from my job, every single thing in the Bahamas in 2001 to go to America to live my best life. Because America is the dream, right? Remember, we have been given America as the dream. And so the dream was shattered in 4 weeks. And I made a choice to go back to Jamaica. And I want to make this very clear. I feel like I'm speaking to somebody on this one. I was offered 3 opportunities to stay in America. All 3 would not have been the right path, so to speak. And I decided I'm going to go back to the Bahamas and live in this little space and live my best life. And I just tell you, I went back to the Bahamas. I spent 7 more years there. And I accomplished all the things that I thought I could accomplish if I went to America. And then after 7 years in the Bahamas, 8 full years, I realized I've outgrown my opportunities in the Bahamas, because it's a small place. And there are many opportunities in the Bahamas, but they are reserved for Bahamian. And so I decided to come to Canada to do a PhD. That's my dream, come to Canada to do a PhD. And so I left and applied for myself. And I came to Canada as a skilled labor category. I filed for myself. And that's something that a lot of people, want to know about, because I came here, I filed for myself. And that was that process. You could have done that. And I did it. And I came to Canada in 2008, started my PhD in 2009, part-time, completed in 2014. And the rest is history. I've been living here ever since, loving it. Jamaica is still home. Bahamas is still one of my home. And I've taken on Ghana as another one of my home as well. Yeah. So that's my journey to here. And that's important. Thank you for asking that. Because a lot of times people want to ask what I consider to be the surface, the topical, the window framing, which is great. It's still a window. It's still a real window. But the window dressing, not realizing what happens in the background before all of this at the front. So that's what happened in my background to get, yeah.
Hi friends, it's me, Thaddeus from Thaddeus Nature Notebook. Are you loving our journey into the wild and learning all about awesome animals? Then don't forget to subscribe. You can find Thaddeus Nature Notebook on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Just hit that subscribe button and never miss a new episode. And if you're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment about your favorite animal. Thanks for listening and exploring nature with me. Let's keep discovering together. Now back to my daddy's self.
I appreciate you sharing the context. And this is why this podcast is what it is. It's all about the layers.
Yes.
See, we get the window dressing, we get all of the aesthetics, but we don't always get down to the internal. We don't get down to beneath the surface.
Yeah.
What led to these teachable moments?
Yes.
See what I did there? What led to that? What led to you get into what led to you get into this place where you came to this realization that there's a lot of colonial components in this contract. Because
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you, Dr. ABC, there are people, even in the States and other parts of the world, who are romanticized with this vision of what teaching is.
Yeah.
They want to save the world. They want to impact all these different young people. But then as soon as they get in, they get hit with the reality. They get hit with the
Yes.
politics of it,
Yes.
and they don't know how to navigate it. I
No.
mean, that was my situation, and then I learned after the fact.
I call it the Miss Universe response. You know, I teach teachers, and sometimes I see where the young teachers, they struggle with the reality of school, and I would say to them, this is not real school, this is textbook school. And some people will, some of the students will receive it, and you can see some of them almost like, you know, they are kind of not so happy with what I say, and then they go on practicum and they come back, and many of them, they are and I'm being very frank, they are discouraged, and they wonder, where do I get my joy from teaching in elementary school for 25 years? And I guarantee you, I could do another 25 years. And I have to say to them, you have to learn how to navigate systems. You can't impact systems unless you understand a system. So, you know, many of them want to save the world. Like, I want to be that black teacher that sees every black child, and I teach this and I do this and I do this. And I go, you are going to be an impactor. You will, but you have to learn the system. I don't know why this example is coming to me, but I have to do it because my energy, my spirit says that. Let's say you want to go into a school and you want to change a school. But you are that, I felt that just now. And you are that teacher who goes to school every day late. Let me explain to you. I feel like I'm going to speak to a particular teacher. Because you are late every day at school, administration, policy have already locked you in. There's nothing you are going to be able to say to make any impact, because you have already been labeled as the teacher who is always late. So learning how to navigate systems. I can't remember being late for school. I am that teacher. I am that teacher. And so because you are that teacher who has shown up in excellence, when you go to a staff meeting and when you go to committees and buildings and organization and things, you have what I call currency. So I show up in those school committees, school setting with a level of currency that when I open my mouth, they listen to Mr. Campbell. Because Mr. Campbell, not only Mr. Campbell has something to say, but like Beyonce says, he can back it up. He has a big ego. That's what Beyonce says, but he could back it up. So when you walk up, I like to quote Beyonce, don't you worry. I'm one of the professors who quote Beyonce. I quote
not a bad person to quote.
My people, right? Right? So I think that is where I see a lot of the young teachers are struggling. They want to change the world, and their heart is big and bold, and they are fearless. But they are not learning the systems, not to be a part of the system, so to speak, but to navigate the system. And you have to learn how to navigate a system to impact a system. So when I go to do my workshop and my keynotes, and they introduce me, I have to share this here, and they introduce me as Dr. ABC, Assistant Professor of University of Toronto, and I'm the Director for the Center for Black Studies, and I'm the Coordinator for BFEB, and I am this and I'm that. That is always cute, and it feels good because I've earned it. But I always take the mic and I always say, maybe one thing they leave out is that I've been a school teacher for 20 years. See, I know the lunchroom lady. I know the bus driver. I know the office administrator. You see where I'm going with this? You see where I'm going? I know where they keep the snacks. So I understand how people, position, power, layers happen in school. And with that, I can do the work that I need to do. How can you disrupt what you don't know? How can you disrupt what you don't know?
There you go. Man, so many things you just said over there. Like you give it like a mini keynote right now.
Come on now.
Like
Come on
that
now.
energy,
Right?
that energy. I feel it right here. Now listen, just to piggyback of what you just said with regard to the PhD title, because usually when people have PhDs, they're associated with folks who have never taught a day in their life in the classroom. Because they just think, oh, you're a PhD. All you do is just study, you research, you write publications, but
Yes.
you don't know the real. You haven't been in the trenches.
Yeah.
You don't have those scars from being in the classroom. But you are somebody who has actually done it at the highest level, and
Absolutely.
you have done the research, and you have that knowledge to back it up.
Yeah.
And that's not something that happens all the time.
No. No.
It doesn't happen all the time.
No.
You know what I mean? And then I also wanted to reference what you just said with regard to the work you do with the Black educators, those who are coming down the pipeline
Yes.
and those who are in service.
Yes. Yes.
Being that you're in academia, being that you're as bold and captivating as you are, I gotta think that there has to be some element of a resistance that you experience when you are pushing. I mean, come on, Center for Black Studies and Education.
Oh, yes.
And then you're giving the messages that you're giving.
Yes.
So I gotta know, with the work that you do at the University of Toronto, and please share as much as you feel like you can share.
Of course, of course.
I ain't trying to get nobody in trouble.
Of course.
But what does mentorship look like for you when you're working with those young Black pre-service educators?
Wow, thank you so much. It's preparing them for the real classroom. And it goes two ways. It's preparing them to teach, but before I want to prepare them to teach, I want to prepare them about how they're going to be taken up as themselves. So
okay.
I think a lot of Black folks, I've met Black folks who they didn't get to grow up in Blackness like I did in Jamaica. And so they are learning who they are. And I encourage them to learn who they are. And not only learn who you are, but fall in love with who you are. You see, I can say this to you with all my heart. I don't struggle in my identity as a Black person. I know I'm Black. I've never been anything else but Black. I've never desired to be anything else but Black. I know many of us, we have been given this narrative of, if I weren't Black, all of this would be successful. And I get that. I get that. So many of us, there's so many Black people who desire to be other than Black. I grew up in a time and a space where I loved who I was. I love who I am as a Black person. I've seen examples. I was telling someone that I've always think Black was beautiful and fabulous. I said, I come from Jamaica. We have had 3 Miss World, Miss Universe. So those things, I know that Black woman could be beautiful and be the standard of beauty because I've seen Black Miss World. We have 3 in Jamaica, 3 Black Miss Worlds, right? So those kind of things I've pulled from. We have Bob Marley. We have so much Blackness that is great. We have Usain Bolt. We just had our finance minister that is also now a big executive at the IMF. So I've always seen what Blackness look like when it's in its survival, in its glory, in its splendor, when it's unbothered. And so for me, in mentoring the Black students in my program and outside of my program, because my mentorship is not just locked into OISE, I am not going to, and this is for the recording, I'm not going to give a university and institution all of it. So that's why I'm very intentional about my community classes and my space. I go into community to do the work as well. So let me be very clear. All this good substance that I have, it's not just being given in a formal institution. I want to be very clear that all this good juiciness that comes from me, that is not poured only into an institution. That is colonial institution. And that is something heavy we need to think about. How do we pour? So I pour into community on purpose. I pour into community when nobody except Blackness is in the space. So that's number one. I make sure I pour into the students so they get to know who they are and get to love themselves. And then I say to them, when you go into the schools, you are not just teaching Black children only. So you need to learn how to teach all children. So no, I am not preparing Black teachers to teach Black children. I am preparing Black teachers to be great in everything and in every space. I'm not limiting them to a predominantly black space, because here's the truth. There are no schools in Toronto that are predominantly black spaces. So I have to empower them to live their best life wherever they go. So I do that quite a bit in how I teach. And then the next part of that is getting them to understand what good pedagogy looks like. And I know you talk a lot about, I see your book, I'm going to get a copy of your book about culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy. Maybe that's when the next time you and I talk, after I get the book, I read the book, we can come back and have a conversation about what that looks like, how they themselves grow in their own cultural competence, how they themselves understand cultural competence. Because I think we kind of lose when we think because you are black or because you have black skin, you understand blackness. No, right? So for my mentorship, it's about themselves, about community, about pedagogy, and about everyday practice. Self, community, pedagogy, and everyday practice. And everyday practice, I mean, how do they, as educators, show up in a school and impact the culture and the climate of the school so that black future can be realized? Because we don't have schools where it's predominantly black staff here in Toronto. We don't have that, right? So
wow,
that's it. Self, community, pedagogy, and practice.
Yes. And I like how you lead with the self, and then the community.
Yeah.
Because if you don't start with yourself, how can you impact your community in a positive way that's going to lead to transformative change?
Yeah. And I have to jump in here quickly about community, because we as black people have watched how people have used community, and we don't know, many of us don't know any better. So the sad news is a lot of us as black folks are also using community just to get along. You know, I've seen doctoral students who go into community, LGBTQ community, black community, whatever community, mothers, black mothers, whatever, and we extract. And we extract for our thesis, and we extract because that's what that's the kind of model we see happening with whiteness, right? Think about what we see whiteness have done to our community. Whiteness comes in and extract, and then they become powerful. So we go in and extract and become powerful. And so if we are not mindful, we do the same thing. So I have been very, very intentional for my own accountability, for my own ethics, for my own belonging in community, that I do not take more from community than I give.
Whew. All right. This is actually perfect, because here's my next question.
Oh, yeah.
And as someone that has been in academia for as long as you have, you've seen the many shifts that have taken place within there, from even from a philosophical standpoint. We know we have the old guard that believes that there's a certain type of scholarship that is deemed the most appropriate or the gold standard, as opposed to what you do, which is more community oriented.
Yes.
Which is more focused around the mediums, whether we're talking social media, you're doing keynotes and things like that. If you think about the traditional scholar or researcher, they're not doing what you're doing.
No.
So I feel like you're bringing you, and along with many others who I look up to as North Stars, including Dr. Yolanda Celia Ruiz, who wrote the foreword for my book. I mean,
somebody I love and respect, and treasure.
Like, that's the type of academic that I revere, because they are the full people. They're full. They recognize that they can't just be an institution and not give that same energy back to the very communities that they're researching on, that they're from.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about your own journey, because you say you were doing your doctorate for 6 years. 6 years part-time.
4.5.
4.5. Okay. 4.5 years. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah. I want to know, number one, what were the ebbs and flows in that journey? You coming in as you are, right? Being Black, being queer, coming from Jamaica, being an immigrant, all these things that you bring to the table.
Yeah.
So that part, and then how does your identity continue to inform the work that you still do in academia and also outside of that space?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm going to respond to the last part first because that was what touched me from what you just said about
Yes, sir.
Yolanda Sile Ruiz and all that kind of stuff.
Yes,
and
sir.
the one word is going to come to me, and it's going to be important. Choices.
Mm.
You know, I've always, when I do equity work, I always remind people that the story of Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks chose to sit down on the bus.
Yes.
You name all those people who have done the work. Harriet Tubman made a choice that I am going to get a pistol and a lantern, we see in the in the picture, and I am going to help people to. Nanny of the Maroons, Paul Bogle, the revolt, the resistance. There are choices that people make. And I'm going to tell you this, those choices never are in alignment fully with colonial structures or institutions. That's the reality. So I'm going to tell you a story, because I'm a storyteller. I love stories, that maybe will help this one.
All
When I
right.
finished my PhD in 2014, one of my professors, who is my mentor today, I have to give respect to him, a white professor at the University of Toronto, Professor Joe Flesser, someone I love and admire, one of my best teachers, somebody who inspired me to teach as well. As I said, I keep on getting inspiration. And he saw me one day at the university, because I teach part-time. I was teaching part-time, one course there. And he said to me, "Hey, Dr. ABC, what are you doing publishing?" He said to me, "I don't want to go down to that road, but you know what they say, the publisher perish, right?" And I turned to him and I said to him, Joe, because I could call him Joe at that time. I respect my professors. I always call him Dr. Flesser, And I said to him, Joe, I said, I'm going to be okay. A big smile. I will never forget how important and emotional that was for me. It was such a powerful time he asked me that question. And I smiled and I said to him, don't worry. I said, I'm going to write books. I'm going to publish. And I'm going to write books that people want to read. And I said, I'm going to write books for teachers. I'm going to write books for community. I'm telling you this, for those who are listening, I'm telling you this. I have published in 2025 way more than I dreamt I would have. I have had books like this one here. Stop the Heat. I can get it. It's right on my shelf.
Take your
It
time.
has more impact. This book here. It has this simple book here, so to speak. It has written by myself and Professor Larry Schwartz. Has more impact than you could ever imagine. I have written a book. I have to go there. I've written books about activist pedagogy that I have gotten opportunities to speak on. We've just published a book on activist school, where I'm one of the editors, that activist leadership that I not only get to write, but I get to speak on because I live this. And I could show you more and more and more and more and more on the shelf. And I am in the midst of working on 3 separate books. What am I saying to you? I am saying to you that my decision to do certain kinds of work has been my choice. And I live by that choice. But let me just say this.
Come on.
You have to remember that these choices are also consequential. So I'm going to say this boldly and strong and because that's what I do. I have seen in institutions, even in my university, people look at you and they look at you like, yeah, you're not at the kind of professor level that some people are at, because they get the biggest grant to research and they get to write on the big grants, the shirk grants on the big grants. And that's what but you have to remember, that's what the university considers to be professional university excellence. The big grants with the big research that you create a new theory and that whatever. And let me just say this. Kudos to every professor. Oh, I felt that. Thank you, ancestors. Kudos to every professor. Today's Mother's Day. I lost my mom in 2022. I have to take a pause for that. And I just feel the energy of my mother, my grandmother, and mothers around me. That I just feel that energy. I feel it so much right now. I feel that so much. I want to take a minute just to honor that energy of my ancestors in the space. Doris Campbell, my grandmother's sister, May I feel it. One of the principal that was a mother to me, Barbara Reed. I feel her energy in this space. I honor that. Ashe. Let me get back into that. So at the university, you have to remember there is a model type. Oh, I'm going to go there. Oh, I'm going to go there. A model type of a professor. But I also want you to understand, in our society, there's a model type of a black man or a man. There's a model type of a leader. There's a model type of a mother. Oh, don't get me started. There's a model type of a CEO. There's a model type of a movie star. There's a model type of a writer. There's a model type of a podcast owner. Don't get me going there with you today. And if you look at who we are, and if you look at what the type is, we are not written in that model type.
Yeah.
And so and they know this, because I've said this, I have absolutely no interest of being the model type of the professor that a colonized institution regard as great. And I have no interest of being the model type of black professor that the university also like, because I'm going to tell you, there are many people that like a certain kind of blackness. I have no interest in that. There's a ruler here that measures what its excellence should look like. I step away from that long ago because I know that I am excellent, not arrogant. I know what I bring. I know what I bring. I get that from the parents and the students. I am that teacher that for years parents have gone to the office and said, can my child be in Mr. Campbell's class? That's my shirt grant.
Whew.
That's my teaching award. That's
Come
my
on.
that's my panels and what they want to do. And I know what I bring. And so I can tell you, you can be successful. I'm saying that to all the people listening to me, that you can be successful without subscribing to that standard that is so colonial. You can disrupt. You can disrupt and still be successful. Because I can see even the black community, we question, can that black man go to that university and be a disruptor and still be authentic to the community? And many times they think it's not possible. So many times people like myself, they will think, oh, he's doing well at the university because he's sold out. And I'm going to be very honest with you. It's very easy to sell out blackness in these spaces. It's harder. It takes more work to stand up in your authentic blackness than just be a good super token or sell out. We love to talk about you bring your own chair and you build your own table. It's easy and comfortable for me to pull out a seat at any white table that they have invited you to in a very limited way than to bring your own chair. Because if you try to bring your own chair, first of all, you reach downstairs in the elevator, somebody's going to ask you where you're going with that chair. We're going to unpack that next time. Yeah. Somebody's going to ask you where you're going with that chair.
Yep.
So because you don't have the energy, and because you don't have the boldness, and because you don't have the bravery to explain why you have to put this chair in the elevator and go upstairs with it, you just sit at any chair they give to you. But I am that professor with the chair in the elevator. I am that person. And I'm that person when I'm given a chair at the table or a seat at the table, I check the chair, because oftentimes we get a broken chair. We get a limp chair. We get the only chair that's not been reupholstered, because you're used to giving us less and we're used to accepting less. It's not the giving, it's the accepting.
The accepting.
And when I don't accept the less, it becomes problematic. So I want to let you know the journey has not been the perfect journey. It's not been the easiest journey.
No.
But I must tell you something. I am enjoying my journey because I started my journey being my authentic self. And that has only been elevated because of my power and privilege that I get being a professor. Let me make that clear, that I do walk in certain power and privilege as a professor at the top university in Canada. And so that for me has only enriched me being authentic. I've used that to enrich my Blackness.
Mm-hmm.
And so my journey has not been easy, but I will advise anyone that being authentic in your walk is powerful, but it's also consequential. Don't look at Dr. ABC and just see all the beautiful things and be like, oh, I want that. There's a lot going on in the background. There's a lot going on in the background. And even that deficit is still happening in universities where they go, yeah, well, he's not writing certain kinds of books. So, but I am blessed, highly favored, honored, and so joyful that the books I am writing are Black stories impacting educators to deal with Blackness. And on a whole note, beyond Blackness, global space is encouraging leaders and teachers how to really be your best self. Your best self. Let me just say this. My mentorship is not just for Black students. I will mentor any student and every student because I want them to live their best lives. And when I mentor them, they see Blackness in a different way as well. They don't walk in deficit.
Yes.
They don't operate in deficit. So that's what I'm doing. And I am absolutely wrapped up in Black joy doing this. And I'm protective of that Black joy in academia.
The Identity Talk for Educators Live podcast is just one piece of the work that we do under Identity Talk Consulting, which we've had since 2019. And since then, we've had the privilege of working with 40 different schools, districts, and organizations across the globe. And we want to continue to add to that number in this new year. So if you are a school, if you're an educator or an organization that's looking to receive professional development and consulting services within any of our pillars, whether it's anti-bias, anti-racist practices, culturally responsive teaching, or identity-affirming education, we are the firm for you, and we love to learn more about your needs. When you have a chance, make sure you go to our website at identity-talk4educators.com to learn more about our services and to schedule a discovery call today. We love to hear from you. Wow, man.
That's a second keynote. Don't worry, I'm going to send you a check after this. I send you a receipt. Right?
I feel you give me all these pro bono keynotes, man. Yes. Yeah. Listen, man, you said so much stuff, but I want to say this, and I'm glad that you mentioned this because this is part of the reason why I wanted you to come. Because, yes, you are Dr. Andrew B. Campbell. You are Dr. ABC, and you earned that title.
Of course.
But let's be clear. Even if the doctor wasn't in front of your name, your knowledge of self tells you that you're already a doctor because you've put in the work.
Absolutely.
You know who you are.
Absolutely.
Right? You don't need an institution or a title to legitimize the work that you've put in for years. And I feel like there are people who feel like, oh, I have to go into a doctoral program. And when I say this, I want to be clear. We need Black and brown academics in the space. We need them in academia. There's still a need for that.
Of course.
But we also need to be clear in the fact that that's not the only path you can take.
No.
Like when you pulled out those books the way you did, you're speaking to me because I was someone who actually enrolled in an EDD program back in 2020.
Yeah.
Got into the EDD program at Northeastern University in Boston.
Nice. Yeah.
And once they sent me the communications regarding security deposit, I pulled out at the last minute because I knew I wasn't going in for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I wanted the title, but I wanted a title for the wrong reasons. It wasn't to engage in the research like you did. It was more so, I want my business to have legitimacy.
Yes.
I want to have more merit to my name.
Yes.
And when I made that decision, when I made that choice, it led to me starting Identity Talk Educators Live, the podcast, the consultancy, and ultimately this book right here.
Yeah.
And I had published 2 other books prior to this. This is the first one with a major publisher, but I had self-published 2 other books.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I could do it, and I felt empowered to do it. So when you're speaking like that, you speaking to me, brother. You were speaking to me and so many other people. Let me
just jump in there. And life is a journey. Life is a journey. So let me just say this, and I need to make sure I say this to you.
Please.
Don't be shocked and don't be surprised if 2 years from now you get up and you go, now I'm going to do the PhD. Now I'm going to do the ED. Oh, no, I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
I'm listening.
I'm telling you. And let me also go there, because somebody may listen to this and think that we are rubbishing the idea of legitimacy of a PhD in a university. No, it's not. We know the value of a PhD.
Yes.
We know it is another layer of access. I know of a fact that me connecting, me associating with the University of Toronto has enhanced my profile. There's no debate about that.
None at all.
There's no debate about that. But I'm going to be honest. There are many people who are associated with the University of Toronto who don't have the kind of profile that I have, because their work is not as impactful. And I've said it without fear of contradiction. But you have to know where you're going with your work. So it's a more personal journey. And so let me just say this. Anytime a young Black person come to me, especially Black folks, young folks, any folk, and I've talked to many persons who are non-Black as well, and they say, Dr. Campbell, I'm a teacher, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I want to study. I was sick. This happened to me just this week. I turned to a young lady who said to me, she wants to impact, she wants to do this, she wants to do that, and she's doing that, and she's doing. And I turned to her and I said, do you have a master's? She said, no. I said, you have to get your master's. I said, you have to. And I said, you have to start now. That's how I speak. I said, you have to get it. You have to start now. Start part-time, one course per semester. You'll be done in 2 years or 2 semesters. You're going to be so excited after the first year. You couldn't believe you did it, that in the next summer, you'll do 2 each summer courses. She looked at me and I said, you will do it. And I'm going to tell you this. This is a part of my Black joy, my joy. That same conversation, I want you to listen to this, Kwame. That same conversation I have had many times. And I know people right now in my circle, outside of circle, extended circle, online impact, that have said to me, Dr. Campbell, guess what? I got into the master. A year from now, a year passed by, Dr. Campbell, guess what? I am wrapping up, or I am finished 5 courses. I have those stories. I can't tell everything now. And maybe that I don't have permission to say some of those now, but I have those stories wrapped up into, as we say back home, because I have said to people, go get it, because it's an equipping, it's tool. It's more than just legitimacy. For me, it's your toolbox. And I say to people that if you want to get into certain spaces, you need to have the qualification. Not that you don't know it, but in a world of policies and practices and rules and processes, you're not going to get to be in certain rooms without that master's degree or without that PhD.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't know it. You know it. So, but here is a reality. Do we all need it? No. But does it add to your work? Yes, for many people. No, for others. There are persons who I've said to them, you don't need a PhD. Go do a second master's. So these are things that we have to learn to navigate. I've said to people, no, you don't need a PhD. Go do a second master's degree, because that's better for where you are going. So you are doing what you're doing at this point, Kwame. Keep doing it. Keep doing. And I love how you said self-publishing 2 books, because guess what? We have such similar journeys. It's kind of ridiculous. I've self-published 2 books too before I do anything, any of these legitimate publisher.
Yeah.
I self-published 2 books, Teachable with Dr. ABC and The Invisible Student. So here's what I'm going to surprise you with. After now I've done publishing all the legitimate publishers, so to speak, and the popular ones,
Sure.
what is happening? Get ready for this.
I'm listening.
I am citing myself in these new legitimate books, and I'm citing my self-published books. So my self-published book, The Invisible Student, in the Jamaican classroom, has gotten way more reading now because I have cited that in the other book that I'm writing on to do with LGBTQ. There's no paper. I'm actually working on 2 journals and a book chapter about 2S LGBTQIA+, myself and Dr. Watson from Brock University. And all 3 of those papers and books, 1 chapter, 2 journal that I got accepted in, I've made it very clear that I must cite The Invisible Student, my self-published book, not because I needed to get legitimacy, but because that's where the work started. And I want them to know, before you got me in this journal, before I got in this Routledge and this Canadian Scholar and this whatever University of Toronto press and this other press, I sat down in my house and I self-published my story. And my story, in my way, is the foundation of all this fabulous institutional credibility that I have been given. It started with Andrew Campbell, that's me, writing my story. And that's why I tell young people who are other people who are coming to me, I said, do not wait for permission to tell your story. Oh, I felt that. Don't wait for permission to tell your story. Write your story. Begin your story. Publish in those quote unquote small spaces. Other than those books that I just show you, I have articles in magazines where some of those magazines and don't count to academic tenure. They don't count those things, right? But I count them. It's my story, written for leaders, teachers, community in different spaces. Those I count them because that's what my journey is.
Hey, let me stop you there, Doc. Cause I know you on a roll right now. But just for the listeners, you are a tenure track professor. Am I correct in saying that?
I'm not tenure yet.
You're not tenure track.
I'm not tenure yet. I'm tenure track, but I'm pre-tenure. So I'm in my 3rd year, going into my 4th year of my work at the University of Toronto. Yeah.
Okay. And I was only mentioning this because usually, like, when you go into the evaluation process with department heads, right? And they look at the publications you've written.
Yeah.
Are they peer reviewed?
Yes.
Do you have certain citations in there? I'm just putting stuff out there. You know better than me.
Yes, yes.
But I've talked to so many academics who talk about this process.
Yeah.
And there is not to open a can of worms right now because we're going to wrap this up. But basically, all I'm saying is you have like public scholarship.
Yes.
Like right now, you talk to me on this podcast. If you were to present this to a panel of department heads at your institution, they probably be like, okay, where are your sources? What's the citation? This is not the proper format.
Yes.
But yet, there's so much value in this conversation.
But you have to
I can't wait to post this conversation.
But you have to say that. So remember we talk about that learning to navigate the space. So I'll be going up for tenure soon.
Okay.
I will get tenure. I'm saying this on the camera. I will.
You will. You manifest that.
I've done the work. But I've done but I'm going to manifest. I've done the work. So I have the publication they need. So but let me tell you how I do my work.
Okay.
So they would say, list this, and they want to feature that. So I have the publication, I have the journal, I have all of that. I have the big conferences. I've been to present at AERA, CSSE, you name it. I have it. But what I also do well And I love to do that. And I've done it for my interview in Oise when I came to this university. And they respect, and I must say, they respect and appreciate that. I will put this as one of my artifacts. And then what I do, I will explain to them, because the same university like to talk about the ways in which they navigate global space and communities. So I said, this is how I am navigating community. Because when this podcast when Identity Talk is published, 500 people may read my chapter in this, but I also guarantee 1,000 or 500 may listen to the podcast. What I'm trying to say to you, that I have done the work. Here is a citation. Here is the document. Here is the document. But as much as you want to value this alone, I want to also present to you item number 2, which is a podcast that was accessible by thousands of people who couldn't afford this book, because this podcast was free. This book, I cannot take this into a group of, if you invite me downtown to speak with all the LGBTQ young folks, who some of them are immigrants, many are refugees, some drop out of school, some have never been to college. This is not going to help them. But this podcast, I may say to them, let's talk about, let's view this 10 minutes from minute number 20.3 to minute number 30.3. And I can unpack that. So this is pedagogy. See what I'm doing? See what I'm doing? I have pulled the podcast up to where I know it should be. It's content, it's pedagogy, it's a part of my practice, and it gets the same legitimate airtime when I'm presenting like the book. Now I remember now that they still only want to see the book, but I have now used my time, because I get my time to present, and I put the podcast as well. Now I don't care if they want to talk about the podcast or not. I have used my power, my currency, my time to sell that. But don't forget, I will be okay, because I've already done what they consider to be excellence. So I have done the excellence. That's why we are so excellent, because we do the standard and we go beyond the standard for community, because the community is not founded in the standard. So the reality is we're always going to work twice as hard. And it's not always a negative, because I am honored to do the extra work to make sure community is featured, to make sure Blackness is featured. So I do the work that the university requires. Let me just make it clear. In 2022, my first year as a full-time professor here at the University of Toronto, I got the award for teaching excellence. Legitimize, right? Credit, adding credit to your name. I could not, let me make this clear, I could not be asked to be the director of the Center for Black Studies, an official center of the University of Toronto, if I was not proving of my excellence. I didn't get that because I had Black skin. I get that because I know what I'm doing, and they trust me that I'm qualified and have the leadership capabilities to do the work, which I've been proving to them already. So yes, we do institution. That's our place of labor. That's my job. That's where I get my salary from.
That's right.
I'm not going to off-step that. But I'm also saying that is not total. That's not the sum total of who we are. We're talking about identity. I have an identity long before I got this job. And I need us to understand that our identity cannot be founded totally in. I'm going to wrap this. I'm going to not wrap this up, but I'm going to make a comment about joy. I talk a lot about Black joy, and I also make it very clear that we have to know the source of our joy.
Yes.
And I've said it maybe a million times so they know it. The source of my joy is not the University of Toronto. University of Toronto has nurtured my joy because of the opportunity and access that I have there. It has also allowed my joy to flourish. It's an amazing place to work. And I must say, because I've said it on enough broadcasts already, I love my job. And I'm honored to work with some amazing people. So I have a sense of belonging that many people don't have at their own university. I have a sense of belonging where I work. But also, I made it very clear that my joy is not nurtured and is not cultivated, at the University of Toronto. It's cultivated in my culture, my identity, in Jamaica, and the food that I eat, in my company, in my groups, my music, my song, my identity. When I go to Ghana again in August, I buckle up my jaw. It's like I could export joy if they would allow me. I could go to Ghana and Jamaica and hang out with my friends at the river in Jamaica, eating crab, eating a steamed fish. I could just, there's so much joy that is being cultivated at that moment that I could bottle it. I could export joy. Dr. ABC bottled joy. Maybe one day they'll allow me to export joy in a bottle. I don't know if I'll ever capture it.
Woo! Wow. 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 Wow.
See, I'm an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah. Listen, this is going to go down as, this is already going to be, I feel like it's going to be like a top 10 episode. And I've done 200 of these episodes.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can't think of too many episodes I've done over the past 5 years where I've been captivated by every word that you've shared.
Enough love.
And I'm saying that honestly, not just because you're here. Like, I really felt what you've been saying all this time. And right now we're clocking at 70 minutes. I don't even care. We're going to keep this whole thing in there because somebody needs to hear this.
Thank you.
There are people out there who need to hear every single word you just said. Is that important, right?
Yeah.
And I know we look at time as this fixed construct, but you know what? Sometimes the ancestors tell you, you got to let the brother speak. And the ancestors told me, let this brother speak today. And I'm so glad I listened to the ancestors. So first off, Dr. Campbell, thank you. Thank you for your energy, your time, and all that you've brought into this space today. And just to wrap things up, I'd love for you to share, how do you continue to stay true to the teacher in you?
It's still being inspired by others. And I want to make sure I end like I started. My inspiration comes from a lot of people. I look around. My inspiration comes from my students I'm teaching. There are certain students in my class, I'll watch them do something or they say something and I just smile because they fill me up with what they just said. And I know that the classroom is going to be okay. There's going to be a child that is going to be okay because of this teacher. So that's where I get my inspiration from. So for me, that's what's going to continue filling me up, to stay true to that. And I want to use, I talk about debt a lot in a good way. Don't worry, in a good way. I laugh because my friends would tell you that. And I always talk about how I want to be remembered. And I've never heard this until 2024. I don't remember where I was, but I was somewhere, I can't remember. And somebody asked a question, what kind of ancestor you want to be? Ooh.
Wow.
That hit me so hard. And the person, I think it was in Ghana, at visiting, I think maybe the Nchinchinian Museum. And they were saying that everybody think that everybody would just die, become an ancestor. Yeah, you become an ancestor. But what kind of ancestor you want to be? Somehow we believe that people who have lived wicked and evil and malicious and bitter and unkind, when they die, they become this amazing person. No. So you still get to decide even what kind of ancestor you want to be. And I want to be the ancestor that I have in my life. Like I sat here and I felt the energy of my mother, my grandmother, and Barbara Reed. I want to be like Barbara Reed, who saw me at 16. 16, I became my first job at 16 at Waterford Primary School. And she employed me to be the school's clerical assistant. And she realized in about 2 weeks that I'm going to be a teacher and a star. And she navigated at the age of 16 how she could have me in the classroom sometimes. And when I became 17, the next year she hired me to be a substitute teacher for the school. And no longer administrative assistant. And she wanted me. And when I left Teachers College, she had a job waiting for me. I want to be like Barbara Reed. I want to see the future, the possibilities in others. I want to continue because I do that in others. I want to speak life into people. That's what I want to do. I want to speak life into people. They say that I do that with my spoonfuls and my teachable moments. I want to keep that. I want to keep that. I want to be the person that speak life into people, that because of my words, people go and do this and they go after this and they dream this and they know it's possible. That's what I want to continue doing and live my best life. I love living my best life. I
Most
love
important.
living my best life. I love it. I love it. I want to wear nice things. I want to go nice places. I want to drive in nice spaces and fly in nice spaces in the plane, eat good food. And I want to do that because we deserve all of that.
And that is a great way to end this conversation. Thank you again, Dr. Campbell. Thank you. And before I let you go, we need to make sure you have an opportunity to let people know how they can connect with you on social media.
Yes.
And also, please feel free to share your services and everything else that you're doing for the different communities you serve.
Thank you. So reach out to me I'm on LinkedIn, Andrew B. Campbell. You can't miss me, Dr. ABC, Andrew B. Campbell, as Andrew Bruce Campbell. I'm also on Instagram as Teachable Moments with Dr. ABC. So that's it, Teachable Moments with Dr. ABC. My website is drabc.ca. Easy. And reach out to me. I am your guest speaker, and you know it. I love showing up for a keynote. I am on every cloud. They say cloud 9. I think I may be on cloud 15. I love being invited to speak. I love being a part of panels. I love doing my workshop. I love doing my keynote. And that actually is my registered business here in Canada, Teachable Moments with Dr. ABC. So yeah, you want some more of this? Know where to find me, to invite me to be one of your keynote speakers. My price is good.
There it is. And listen,
I don't do it for free. I don't do for free. So let's make that very clear. We're not gonna use black labor and discard black labor. We're gonna give blackness what it is.
And listen, today's price ain't gonna be tomorrow's price.
Oh no!
Let's get that clear too.
Right.
We got standards up in here. We got standards.
Enough love and respect for me. Enough love and respect. Enough love.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And listen, on behalf of Dr. Campbell, thank you all for listening to another episode of IDTALK4ED Educators Live. And as always, we wish you all good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. And we're going to do this again another time. Peace out, everybody.